was Parker Van Dyke on Thursday night because you got down in the first half 6 or 7, and Parker went on a little mini run of his own, hit a couple of threes, and then he hit a layup, and then he was quiet in the second half scoring wise. But he had that last great take to the basket where he got it up and off the window. That gave you guys, I think, a 65-63 lead, and he never trailed after that. He finished in double figures, which is a terrific night, but it was picking his spots and finding the right time to score those points, which was big for you guys.
Yeah, and Parker's wise that way. I mean, he's not a kid with his skill set that's really in a position to force many shots.
Right.
But he's been around the block long enough to know when he's open, and when we get him open, just open enough, we expect him to jump up and shoot him in, and that's what he did. And we've added a few sets. You know, we didn't want to have a bunch of sets in at the beginning of the year that can get scouted, so we're running some stuff to try to get him some looks that he knows, hey, this is my play, and he's stepping up and playing like a senior. And it's he's an easy kid to cheer for. He stands for a lot of the right stuff, and it's fitting that he was a big part in the weekend.
What's the value in earning and grinding a win out? You'd love to win every game by 25, but that's just not how sports works unless you're, the running Rebels of the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
So you're gonna have to grind some games out. To grind one out, to grind it out on the road against, again, the record doesn't say it, but that's a talented Stanford team. Where's the value in that, especially with a young team or a young-ish team like you've got?
Yeah, I think it was one of those games that really was like, a boxing match where we each had our little flurries. You win a round, you win another round. Nobody really won 3 rounds in a row. And then a team answered and came back, and it was just kind of like that. And we talked the second half, and every time out I spoke about how this isn't about the X's and O's. This is about you guys and your mindset to fight through some of the pressure. They're taking us out of our offense.
Sure.
And so you have to go make some plays. And then we had a stretch where they took the lead and it got kind of comfortable, 8 minutes, something like that left in the game. And Jonesy keeps track of a bunch of the stats, and he's just fired off that, they'd scored like 7 out of 10 possessions. And we hadn't had a kill. We hadn't got multiple stops. And I really challenged the guys at that media timeout. And by the next media timeout, we'd already had a couple kills. And I think you told me post-game where we held them 11 out of 13 possessions or something going down the stretch. And it got back to validating what we've talked about with defense. We had some guys step in, make plays. Jace was a great wall at the rim, keeping guys in front of us. And we're just so much better. And then it helps heading off the other direction. We didn't have to deal with some of that pressure that they were in, and if we do a good job defensively, we get the ball out and run, and there's been a correlation with us doing that. And I think what's happening, to answer your question, is the guys are experiencing that. You talk about, hey, freshmen have got how do you get better? How do you get experience? It's only a hands-on deal, and you're limited practice. And so when they go through that, and then we watched all the film the next day, because you can't, in that day in between, you can't grind your guys and just go out and pound them again. But we had to see it visually on the film, and I challenged all of our guys. You can actually have a mental practice. You can go through some things while you're sitting on the bus and just think about some of your mistakes. What do you need to get better at? Because a lot of it, besides the body and the skill and those things that you exert on the basketball court, there's a lot of it up between our ears, especially this time of year when you can't, like I said, get out and practice and wear guys' legs down.
The stat, by the way, Stanford began the second half. They shot a lot better. They were 11 for 20. They were shooting about 53% for the first 11, 12 minutes. But those last 8 minutes, Utah held them 2 for 11 down the stretch, and the defense got markedly better. So you get that first, you can't win 2 if you don't win the first one. So you get that first one in your back pocket. You travel across the bay. You have a relatively light day and a build-up to Cal. You said it. Cal's not having a great year right now. They're struggling a little bit. And you guys played, with the exception of probably the last 3.5 minutes of the first half, you played really good basketball. You had a big lead. They got away. And then I guess I'd be curious what your message was at halftime, because you guys haven't been necessarily in some games the best team coming out of the locker room, but you came out of the locker room with a little bit of purpose.
It was really good. I mean, we gave up 7 threes against Cal, And when you look at statistics, the previous 5 games, league play, you'd look at their roster and say, well, there's a bunch of guys that aren't making threes. Well, I knew 3 of those guys could make threes. And they're also good at penetration. They led the conference in percentage of points that they get at the free throw line. So obviously, we practiced at the Golden State Warriors facility the day before. We talked a lot about the importance. You've got to guard some of these guys like you do a Durant. We talk about a Ray Allen is a guy that you just plain have to make dribble. Right. You can't let him shoot it. Then you've got a Rondo that you don't want to be anywhere near him because you know he's going to drive it. Well, once they started hitting threes, then we had to treat them like Durant's. Like, hey, they're a player. Get your hand in their face, and at the same time, get ready to move your feet. So it's a tough matchup, but we couldn't just run guys off the line, and we couldn't pack off of them because they hit 7 threes in the first half. And that was the big thing. I thought our zone was good, but our hands were down on shooters, and we allowed them to hit, I think it was a season high for a half, hitting 7 threes. And we came out in the second half, and we had hands in their face and got them a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, you contested, and you kind of got back to what you were doing in the first half, running your offense. Getting things done. Timmy Allen had the double-double. He was terrific. Cedric went through. It seems like in this last month, really in Pac-12 play, Cedric has, with maybe the exception of the Washington game, had that little moment in each game or moments where he gets pretty red hot. Yeah. And he's going to come down and he's going to bury 2 or 3 threes in a row. He'll probably have that heat check too, which I know drives you crazy. But he gets hot. And that has really spurred you guys on some runs.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the heat check. I kind of blew a gasket right before halftime as they were getting back in the game. Yeah. Because we were expending a lot of energy pushing the ball, and we were getting good shots. It was dang near 50-50 at halftime, and we put up a lot of points.
You did.
But we were expending far more energy on the offensive end than we were at the defensive end. And then we got into a little trying to outshoot them, and we took some ill-advised shots while they're hitting threes at the other end. And I was upset because going into halftime, you don't want to have that little setback again. And I think Ced's really matured in knowing if he's open, we expect him to shoot. But at the same time, you look at the Stanford game, there were 2 guys on him. And he did a heck of a job finding other guys, and that's the thing. When you want to be a good player is one thing, but when you really want to enhance your team's chance for success, you've got to be able to give it up and trust your teammates. And that, I thought all weekend, we almost had 5 guys in double figures in Stanford, and then you got 17 points from Booth, and some guys are hitting threes. Riley hit a couple threes to start that game. So it really generates a little momentum. And I think what happens also is it ends up being a great thing for Ced, because then the double coverage ends. Because, all of a sudden, we got to guard these other guys, and now Cedric can kind of pick and choose. And I think he's really matured and established and understands that's an element of the game. I've talked to him about it to kind of pick his times. But those 2 big threes at Stanford in front of our bench, those were obviously really, really big plays. And I thought that was a little bit of the result of him being patient and kind of letting the game come to him.
By the way, Cal, Utah scores 82 points. 41 of your 82 came from your 3 freshmen. Riley Batten, Timmy Allen, and Booth Gotch combined for half of your points, which has got to be a nice sign for you to see those guys, and especially for Riley. Riley, who's pretty good at spacing the floor and shooting it, hadn't seen that ball go in from the outside a lot in the last couple of games, and then he came in and fired those 2 early threes in.
Yeah, that was big for him. And he got a couple offensive fouls, kind of cheap. The game was completely different. It was a bloodbath at Stanford, and then everything was being called at the Cal game. And it's hard for your young kids to sort that out sometimes, because you think the refs are always going to be the same, and you kind of have to evaluate what's taking place. But, and today in practice, Riley, we did about 6 shooting games to get warmed up, and I think Riley won 4 of them. So he's finding a little rhythm, and the basket's getting big for him, and he's continuing to grow, as are the rest of the guys.
Going to take our first time out here on the Coach Who Show tonight, which is brought to you by Smith's, low prices and market fresh. Also brought to you by our friends at the Pac-12 Networks, covering the champion conference of champions like no other. The Pac-12 Networks, where champions play. Speaking of that, we'll find out how the visit to the Pac-12 Network studios went for the Runnin' Utes on Friday. We'll pass out some team awards. Timmy Allen will be by. We'll talk about the conference and more coming up. This is Utah Basketball on the Coaches Show from Learfield. With available advanced safety technologies, Nissan, a proud supporter of Utah and college athletics. Back on the Smith's Coaches Show with Larry tonight. Our apologies, we had a few technical glitches in that first segment. Hopefully all smoothed out now and ready to go here in the second segment of the program. You guys paid a little visit on your day in between games downtown to the Pac-12 Network studios and gave the boys a little tour around, and apparently Parker Van Dyke is making a play for my job.
Yeah, I saw that. He had a turnover. I don't know if you're at a high risk of being unemployed anytime soon. But we watched film, had a good team meeting, and then wanted to get our guys to San Francisco. It was beautiful weather. They'd had 17 straight days of rain, so everybody came out of their shells, and I just thought it'd be a good idea. We go there for the Pac-12 media days, and Cedric and Jace and some guys had been there. But it's cool, and we just stopped in for a half an hour and got a little tour so they can gain a little bit better understanding for what goes on behind the scenes. The conference administrative offices, and then all of the media stuff and the cameras, and just to understand that it's a pretty big deal to have all our games on TV, and it's quite a production. It takes a number of people to do it, and who knows, maybe, when not everybody's going to get to stay in the game, and coach or continue to play, but it's certainly a way to stay in the game when you get involved with the Pac-12, and they've had a lot of internships. So I thought I'd try to get some guys' head spinning a little bit to think about some life after basketball.
Well, the other thing that's cool too is, and there's nothing wrong with Palo Alto, it's beautiful, and Berkeley's a cool city too, but San Francisco is one of the cool cities in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you take it for granted because you go there so often. You've been there a bunch, I've been there a bunch, but I took part of the day on Friday after I got some work done. I took the train in and just walked around. It's a cool city, and sometimes you forget. I'm going to bet half your team hasn't been in San Francisco before and had a chance to walk around. Probably for sure La Ha Chun.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. I mean, we've had some silly questions like which one's the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz. I mean, we went down to the market and had a meal and let everybody run around and get out of the hotel. Sometimes you get cooped up in the hotel a little bit, but it's a marvelous city. We caught the fall Sunday. I stayed and recruited and watched a game and a couple games and a practice, and ended up driving an hour through the wine country. And it was just, I'd never really been there, at least on the road that I was on that night. And it was, vineyard on each side, and it just was super green and nice. It was kind of calming.
You guys have won 4 in a row, and you begin this week right now sitting at 5-2 in conference play. And I said the other day, I said it's amazing what happens when you've got a youngish team and you have a month of practice and games and more time together. It doesn't even look like the same team we saw in parts of late November and early December now. Give me a couple of common denominators as to why you guys maybe are clicking a little bit right now.
Well, I think without a doubt, 2 things. One is, our offense was atrocious early on. I thought we really focused a lot on defense, and we were out of sorts. Probably, too much for our guys to remember. And more than anything, it wasn't so much the X and O's and the diagrams and what it was we were trying to run, as much as it was the overall vibe and concept that we talk about a lot at Utah, is that we're not going to take bad shots. And we chart all our shots, we put a number value on them, and we're seeking 5s. Like 5 is, this is what we're running. Everybody on our team knows it's a great shot, no questions asked. And early in the season, we were at about a 3.7 when you averaged out our games. And that's just not going to win very many games, And our transition defense was bad. I think it sucks some life out of you to get back. So we really started sharing the ball. It happened, we got it going in practice. That was something that I really stressed. And so offensively, I thought we started clicking a little bit better. And then we went back and really started getting after the defense. And we've been playing a lot of zone, mixing in some man and some other things. But I think, just having those periods, it was during those times when we played 1 game a week where we were getting better in those areas. And then again, I think it's just some experience and role development, or role establishment. After some time goes by, we're playing 8-9 guys. And I think everybody kind of settled in. We've always talked about the different stages, right? The forming, the storming, the norming, and then the performing. Yeah. And I think that's what happened. I think, we got everybody together, and we stormed like mad, and it didn't look good. And then we started kind of norming and getting things, and now I think we're performing. So it's kind of a typical life cycle, at least the way you diagram it.
We've got to take another quick break here. Before we get a break, Timmy Allen's coming in next.
Great.
He's going to sit down and talk with us. He's had, in the last 2 weeks, a couple of double-doubles. He had a 21-10 game. He had a 17-12 game the other night. We've even seen him knock down a few jumpers from the outside. Just give us a little idea of where you found Timmy, how you kind of stumbled across him in recruiting, and what he's meant to your program in his short time here.
Well, he played with the Compton Magic, a great AAU program that we've got an awful lot of respect for. Said was on that squad. We've had guys in our program, and I think that's kind of a big-time program. There's a lot of elite athletes on the team, and Timmy's a little different cat. He's a little simpler-minded in terms of the fluff and all the glamour that goes with being an elite athlete. And I think, we got him here on campus, spent time recruiting him, built a great relationship over the phone. And this is a place I think that it's a perfect fit for him. He can come here and get away from any crazy crowds. We've got great relationships with he and his family. And he's just perfect, as far as that goes. Now, he's got a lot of things to keep working on, but he's excited. He's as hard a worker as we have in practice. The one thing I've noticed the last couple of weeks is he's starting to hold other guys accountable. So he's getting some of the leadership stuff and starting to feel comfortable. But just a super kid. And I told you months ago that he brought up when he got here, hey, do you think I can make the league just by being a stopper? And it's just, that's unusual. Not many kids are going to be talking about that when they're heading in. They've got, visions of grandeur that involve other things, but he's really solid defensively and then obviously doing a lot for us in the stat sheet.
Yep, we'll talk to Timmy Allen coming up next year on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's. Our show tonight also brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the official sponsor of Utah Athletics, reminding you to enjoy responsibly. Quick timeout here on the Coaches Show, back with Timmy Allen on the other side. This is Utah basketball from Learfield. Said that a bunch over the weekend. That's our Code Red Pepsi play of the week. Code Red Pepsi, Code Red Mountain Dew and Pepsi, proud sponsors of Utah Athletics and Utah basketball. That's how you do the do with a Code Red. Timmy Allen sitting in with us here on the Coaches Show tonight. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing okay. Doing okay. So, fast forward from a year ago when you were committed to Utah and to where you are right now. How's it been?
Journey, to say the least. A lot of ups and a lot of downs, but a lot of growth in between. Just coming here and getting going as a freshman. It's just a lot of growth every day, just learning here. But it's been fun for sure.
Well, the ups have been obviously the last few weeks. What was the tough part? What was the growth? What was the down part? Is it just knowing you're not the best player necessarily and you had to go out there and grind and play against some better guys?
For sure. It's just an everyday grind here, and you're not the best player, and you have to fit into a system and adjust, and a lot of adjustments within what we're running on offense and defense. But you get used to it, and I'm just trying to do as much as I can to grow every day and learn as much as I can when I'm here.
So I was talking to Coach about this in the last segment. He was talking a little bit about your recruitment. What sold you on Utah? Why was this a good fit for Timmy Allen?
The culture, when I came here on my official, I've said this a bunch, the vibe was different. The guys were just different. They were vibing different, and I really liked that. And that they just believed in me, and they saw the dog in me and that I could play, so I just bought into Utah.
Coach mentioned you played AAU ball with Compton Magic, and they've got a great relationship with the guys that run Compton Magic, some of the guys that kind of help coach you and mentor you through some basketball. Did it help that some guys like a Justin Bibbins was here and a Cedric Bearfield were here, some guys that had come through that program and were here having some success?
For sure. They gave me the outlook on the whole situation. Obviously, knowing Ced a lot more than Justin, but we're all family, so it was good for me to see what it's really like here and to have that connection with them. And now me and Ced are like this. We're brothers, so it's cool.
It's funny to hear you say that because I can remember when Ced came in and he transferred in from SNU. It took him a minute, and I remember some of the older guys like Brandon Taylor and some of those guys kind of putting their arm around Ced a little bit. And now he's the guy doing that to you guys, and I'm going to guess Parker's one of those guys is doing that a little bit too.
For sure. It's me and Parker have a great relationship. I just try and learn as much as I can from him and Ced while they're here and just get as much out of them as I can.
So what's been the difference for you this last month? Conference play, you guys in the last month are now 5-2. You've won 4 games in a row. To be very fair, you could have very easily won another game in there. The Arizona game was there to be had for you, and one of these days we'll go down to Arizona and actually get a win. Maybe it's next year and help us do that. But where's it been different? Why do you think you guys are now all of a sudden gelling a little bit?
Just growth down the stretch. We're all kind of finding our roles and our niche, and we're just all getting rolling here. Ced's been playing great. Parker's shooting it. Donnie's doing what he does. So we're just getting rolling here down the stretch, and that's what most Utah teams have done down the stretch here. So we're just looking to do the same thing and make an impact in the conference.
Well, every Utah team that Larry's coached has gotten better as the years gone along. Whatever the preseason hype was about them, they've met or exceeded that preseason hype. And I know that's a goal for you guys. Yeah. You don't want to finish 8th in the Pac-12. No. You were picked to finish 8th. And you can understand, 9 new faces, nobody knows. There wasn't an All-American coming back, some good players. So you understand maybe why people did that, but that's not to say it's not still a motivator, right?
Nah, for sure. That was a few too far from the jump when we were talking about it in weights preseason. But yeah, we're just trying to get up there and compete. We think we can compete with anybody in the Pac-12, so that's what we're looking to do.
Timmy Allen's our guest here on the Coaches Show tonight. So what's been different for you now the last few weeks? You've got a couple of double-doubles under your belt now. You had the 21 and 10. You had 22 in a game. You had the 17 and 12 the other night. It looks like it's coming a little bit easier for you. Is that how you're feeling?
Yeah, I think I'm getting comfortable, and I think I'm going on some momentum. So I'm just trying to build game by game, but just each game is its own battle. So I'm just getting more comfortable as the games go on, and I feel good out there. So it's good.
What are you doing best right now? Where do you feel best right now? What are you doing best? Give me a feel for that.
I think I'm just the best when I'm making plays for myself or my teammates. When I get off the board, and I've said this before, when I get off the board and we're going in transition, I think we're really good. So just making plays, you know.
You're getting a lot of rebounds, and both you and Donnie, traditionally we've seen a lot of outlet to the point guard, find the point guard. That isn't the case. You guys are grabbing it and going. Do you like that?
Yeah, for sure. We know what we're capable of, and we know we can bring it on some teams. We're hard to stop point solo or when we're all running in transition. So that's for sure one of our strengths.
Yeah, I would say so. And I would guess that both Sed and Parker probably don't mind that either because that allows them to kind of fan out. And you're pretty good. And I know I noticed this past weekend. You'll find the middle of the floor. You're not running the wings with the ball. You get back to the middle of the floor, which is what coach, you always taught.
Yeah.
Get to the middle. You can either kick it or go at the basket. Where do you make that decision? Where's Timmy Allen beginning to figure that? Because you can't do it when you're in the lane because by then it's too late. Where are you beginning to try and make that decision and see the court?
Well, when I get the rebound, I'm just surveying up court, but it mainly starts to happen around half court when I start seeing where my big's cutting and where my wings are at. And if my big's cutting down the middle, I can sometimes play off of him and make a play. But if my shooters are ahead, I'm gonna kick it up to them too. So, but usually before a little half court area, I start getting in the zone.
Freshman had a nice game against Cal. 41 of the 82 points were from the freshmen. You had 17. Booth had 18. Riley found his stroke back again.
Yes,
what do you youngins talk about when you kind of get together a little bit? Because this is going to be your team, if not later this year, in the years to come.
Well, we believe we're special, and it's nothing we don't expect from ourselves. We expect the most, and we're just looking to grow, and we're gonna be a problem for years to come, and there's none we're surprised of.
Got the Oregon schools coming in this week. Oregon on Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Good team, different team without Bull. That dude was big and he could shoot it, and he's done. So they're having to figure out life without him. They did beat Wazoo last night. Then you got Oregon State, who's been maybe a little bit of a surprise. What do you know? Have you seen those guys play much? What do you know about the Ducks?
I know they're both really good teams, but we're going to focus on the first one for sure. We're looking to protect home court, so that's big for us, but we feel that we can compete and beat any team in this conference. So we're just looking. It's not going to be easy, I'm not saying that, but we're going to grind it out and looking to get a good win at home.
All right, before you go, I've got to ask you about your shot because everybody's got a different shot. All that matters is how it goes in. But I've had a lot of people ask me, how did that shot develop? So you got to tell us, how did that shot develop, Timmy Allen?
I don't know. A lot. I mean, I put a lot into it, but a lot changes with your body and stuff. But I'm just working to get it consistent. If it goes in, it goes in. So that's all I'm gonna do.
You're making them from deep. I don't think you've missed from deep yet this year, and they counted the one with the foot on the line. So it's been good. I was just curious where you got that from.
I'm trying to get it consistent somewhere, but a lot of work to go for sure.
Hey, if it goes in, that's all that matters at the end of the day. You having fun?
Yeah, for sure. I'm having the time of my life.
Well, hey, thanks for coming by.
Yes, sir,
good to see you. Timmy Allen with us here on the Coaches Show tonight. He's having a good year. Come out and see us on Thursday night. 7 o'clock start time. Fill that Huntsman Center up. The Utes and the Ducks. Our pregame show will begin at 6. We'll tip it off at 7. Utah and Oregon coming up. More with Coach. We'll pass out our weekly awards. And Utah basketball doing a pretty special thing to honor the memory of the man whose name's on this building. We'll tell you about that coming up as well. This is Utah basketball from Learfield. Yeah, Booth Gotch had himself a really nice game against the Cal Bears as we welcome you back into the Coaches Show, which is always is presented by Smith's. Oregon coming in on Thursday. We got to pass out our weekly awards, and Coach will do that. We start with our Innovative Player of the Week, brought to you by U of U Health. Who's your Player of the Week? You've got some good choices. You're rolling right now. There's a lot of guys playing well.
Well, the young man that just left here is a. Can we do co-MVP, co-Players of the Week?
Well, I mean, it's your show. We can do whatever you want to do.
Well, let's do a 50-50 on that one, because between he and Cedric, I thought those guys I think scored over 20 in both games, and it's a team thing. I hate these awards. I don't know that our guys get wounded if they don't get it, but
they're all sitting back in their apartments and dorm rooms listening, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's certainly, I think it's evident that for us to be successful, we need multiple guys to play well. But Timmy and Ced would be great guys to split that award.
So we'll split it this week. Our Team Utah Players of the Week, Timmy Allen and Cedric Bearfield, with 16 convenient neighborhood health centers. They've got a game plan for your family's health. Visit them online at uofuhealth.org. I do think the sub of the week's an easy one this week.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. He in some games he plays starter minutes for you. But I thought Booth Gotch had one of his best games of the year. He led you, his season high was that Kentucky game where he kind of kept you guys in it for a while. But that game that he played against Cal the other day took exactly what they gave him. I think he was 7 of 10 shooting. He had a couple of nice assists. And we talked to him in the post-game show, too. He told us what he's really looking forward to and enjoying right now is his defense and playing kind of the point of your zone defense and jumping out in some passing lanes.
Yeah, no, that was great. Like the Colorado game when he got some turnovers, and I talked to Booth about that. When you look at Matisse Thybulle with Washington, there's a lot of similarities in terms of length, and you put some of that length up in the top of the zone, it becomes a little harder to play into the high post, and you can kind of turn them loose a little bit in some trapping situations. I know he loves that, and it's good to hear that Booth's talking about defense, because he's got the length, gets a little too active and jumps around and gives up angles. But he's improving and he's grinding, comes to practice every day and grinds, and it's really important to him to try to shore that up. But he hit 5 threes?
Yeah.
4 or 5 threes. Made some nice moves late. We put him in a 4 flat situation and let him go ice a guy, and he made a big bucket late, and he's just getting better all the time. But he's been a big lift for us, and I think he likes coming off the bench. He can kind of check the game out and figure out how he can help us when he comes in, and if he keeps playing that way, that's one of the values, I think, of being a backup, is you come in about the time that maybe some of the other guys are subbing, and I think he's a really solid backup. Obviously could be a starter, but he and Donnie, I think, are both really relishing the opportunity to come off the bench.
Well, and it's given you guys a nice lift knowing you've got those 2 guys coming off the bench. A lot of times you'll look down that bench and you'll wonder, where are we going to get some points from? Who's going to run the offense for us or whatever?
Yeah.
Both those guys can give you points, can defend, can rebound, do all those things. How's Booth coming along as a point guard?
He's getting better. We practiced today. You asked me that question after he was kind of a turnover show in practice.
So he was running the stairs today?
We didn't do stairs.
Okay.
No, it was a shorter practice. And the one thing we have to remember here is that Oregon leads our league in steals and percentage of points off of turnovers with their 3-quarter court press, their 41 full court man-to-man, and they really try to speed you up, a lot of back tapping and then length at the rim. So we tried to simulate that today. We did a little shell session where we had 4 offensive guys and 5 defensive guys, which is something that we hadn't done in a while, and so everybody's got to slow down. And Booth was kind of throwing it around the gym a little bit. But those are the experiences you have. If you can't simulate Oregon's athleticism and length, then you need to add a guy. And that kind of got the job done, and he got a little taste of what some of that pressure can be like.
Speaking of Oregon, we'll preview the Ducks, and Larry's got a little special announcement to make of a project they're doing within Utah basketball. That when we come back on the other side of the Coaches Show. By the way, our Subway Sub of the Week brought to you by Subway, where you can buy a signature wrap now and get a 21-ounce drink for $1 more only at Subway. Back on the other side with a little preview of the Ducks and a little way you can help out for a good cause. That'll be next. This is Utah Basketball from Learfield. Well, that was a big run early for Cedric to get Utah going again, and he and Riley Batten had a good start to that game. We welcome you back into the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's tonight. Oregon in on Thursday. The Ducks beat Washington State last night. They've had to adjust to life without their big man, Bull, who hurt his foot in the non-conference season. But what have you seen on the scout from Dane Altman's team?
Well, I mean, they're like usual. There's a bunch of athletes running around. Pritchard's been there, kind of the head of the snake, and the point guard that's running the show. They got balanced scoring. They almost have 5 guys in double figures, you know, and it's, as I said before, it's a turnover. They really try to speed you up with their length and get you going and try to score off their defense. And I know the Bull thing was a setback for them, and they've had some injuries. And they've had 2 of the craziest losses I've seen. They were up against UCLA by 10 with 1:07 to go and lost.
At home.
At home, and I'll tell you, the game that was really a rough one was the Washington game the other night. I watched it today, tie score with 4 seconds to go, and they're dribbling the length of the court, and there was a foul called that shouldn't have been called, and it was 3 free throws with 1.6 seconds left that cost them the loss. So, you know, they're those 2 games away from having the same record that we have.
Sure.
And we struggled with Oregon. We have, you know, traditionally, we've got a couple wins early on, but I think they got our number here recently. So we got to be ready to rock and roll.
7 o'clock on Thursday night, our pregame show at 6 here on the network. Before we go, you guys are partnering up with the Huntsman Cancer Institute. I know that's a very near and dear place to you, because John, who died almost a year ago.
February 2nd.
Yep, a year ago, was so important in your life. Give our listeners and the Utah fans an idea of what you guys are doing over the next week or so.
Well, you know, we've got the Huntsman Strong game this weekend on Saturday, and just such an amazing guy, you know, and dealt with cancer himself, and comes up with this idea that he's going to start a cancer institute up on the hill. And now it's one of the finest in the country.
Yep.
So many things John touched me with, you know, humility, his drive, his work, his family, his faith, just over and over. And really, Bill, I can tell you this, in 54 years that I've been around, I haven't seen a better example of how to live your life. And he's a guy that I miss dearly. And we're going to try to raise some money. Our family's going to match funds. We hope we can get the amount cranked up there. John was always big about trying to get things matched in fundraising. So that's what we're going to do, and we hope people will open up their checkbooks.
Here it is, hope.huntsmancancer.org. That's hope.huntsmancancer.org. Make your contribution. We'll see you Thursday night. This is the Coaches Show from Learfield.